After writing 2 transformational books myself and supporting many other beings to do the same, I've become enthralled by the deep and mysterious magic that's activated when we choose to say yes to ourselves and commit to the book writing journey. Of course, we want to inspire change and new perspectives in our readers, but the transformation that happens as an author, both throughout the writing process and by actually releasing your book into the world, is surprisingly potent. I know I've been blindsided in the most disruptive and delicious ways by some of the changes my books have brought into my life. Writing a book is like casting a spell. Although we can never be completely sure what's going to be unleashed during the process, we choose to do it anyway. This Unbound one is a heroic journey. Each book has the potential to be a magical portal, a doorway to a new world, both for you and your reader. Each book has a very specific medicine that it's here to share with us. And each book gives us the opportunity to alchemize the magnificent imperfection of our experience into gold. The truth is that anyone can write a book. We could all get a few thousand words down and put them together. But what fascinates me is what happens when we allow the book writing process to go deeper. When we say, fuck it, get naked and dive way down beneath the surface. Letting go of the shoulds and any need to be acceptable, sensible, or approved of. What fascinates me is what happens when we make ourselves fully available to being transformed by the very act of writing a book. This is Unbound Writing, and this is the process we'll be exploring together here in the Unbound Writers Club. I'm Nicola, author and founder of the Unbound Press, and I help magical beings to write the transformational book they're really here to write at this time. I'm your guide here in the Unbound Writers Club, and the aim of this podcast is to help you to feel supported, encouraged, activated as you embark on your book writing journey. Whether you're a first-time author or have many books out in the world, my hope is that you will find something here to inspire you. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Unbound Writers Club. Today I am joined by one of our magical Unbound authors, Brier Heart. So Brier is very different, and also the author of our latest release, Menopause Wisdoms, Women's Stories of Becoming Crone. So this is Brier's second book, and wow, it just feels like it is so very needed in the world. It's been needed for a long time, and I'm just so grateful that Brier has created and birthed this book into the world at this time. As a woman myself who is on her menopause journey, it's so helpful for me to read, to hear about other women's experiences, and also to have some tools that can support me. And like for women of any age, I just feel like this book is going to be such a, I can't think of the word, but such powerful medicine. And yeah, I was going to start talking about menopause as this like amazing transition, this initiation. But you know what? I feel like we can just dive into this conversation with Brier because it all bubbles up during that. So let's dive in. Oh, so Brier, welcome back to the Unbound Writers Club.
Yeah, so exciting to be here. Thank you.
Oh, we were just taking a moment in silence there before I said hello. I just felt I could have sat with you in silence for a long time. It felt really good. Might not be that interesting to those listening, but you know, it felt
Who
good
knows?
to me. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, so we are here to talk about Menopause Wisdoms, and I am so excited to dive into a conversation around that. But first, I am going to ask you the question that I know I've asked you before, um, but right now, in this moment, and as we're recording this, is the release day of Menopause Wisdom.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you to be an Unbound writer right now?
I love this question. And on every other podcast that I listen from the Unbound Authors podcast, I'm always blown away by what people are saying. So for me today, I think I feel it is, it's a reflection of the times that we're in. I feel we are in such incredibly potent and powerful times, and I'm sure I'm going to use those two words a lot in this conversation. And we're in it, and they're very strange times as well. And, times where there is so much going on that is trying to bind us, to censor us and to bind us, and to really sort of taking everybody back to places where, that we thought we'd left forever. But, they, in inverted commas, are trying to push us back into those spaces. So for me, it's really staying in that place of my truth and being aligned to my true nature. And of course, my true nature now being on my Crone pathway is about connecting to my own internal authority, my own truth, my wisdom, and more than that. So obviously important for me to be aligned to that so that I can then share that with other people, which is why the book has been written and today being released. So it's huge, isn't it? I think to be unbound in these times, it's a courageous act. I don't think it's easy for many. And to stay in touch, stay connected to one's own truth is incredibly difficult at this time. I mean, it's difficult anyway. It's why we go through initiations to come to that place. And menopause is a fantastic initiation to do that, to come to one's own internal authority and potency and power. So this book is really important to me to be going out there at this time. We were just saying this before, you hit record. The timing couldn't be better, of course. That's the way magic works, isn't it? So to have written a book with the intention of supporting women through that initiation of menopause at this time where we are in a global initiation, when we're all being called to stand in our potency and power, is incredibly important. So for me, right now, that's what being an unbound writer symbolizes for me. Yeah.
And I can feel it so strongly. Like I felt tears coming. I don't know, I might just cry all through this conversation. I'm sure that won't be the last time tears come, because I really experience you as somebody who is living their truth and expressing from that place. And this book definitely, like, that energy is streaming through it, and not just from you, but from each of the women who have stepped forward to share their stories.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, like what the book is and how it came together?
Yeah. Oh, well. So I think first, just to kind of pick up on that thread of it's not just my voice. The 11 women whose voices the book make up the bulk of the book, and each of those voices is individual, and each is the truth of what their experience of journeying the alchemical process of menopause has been or still is for some of them. So so the book, I always think of the start of it as when we were on retreat back in 2019. No,
2020.
2020. So it's February 2020. Yes. So my first book, Take Off Your Armour, had come out at the end of 2019. And I knew that a seed had been planted in that because I started to speak about my menopause journey in that book. And I knew that more than my own story needed to be told. You know, I was very aware that for most women still, we are fed a very particular perspective of what the menopause is, which is not my perspective. So I felt that women's voices needed to be heard. And so at the retreat, it was brewing. And I actually can't remember if I'd already started to do the interviews. Then I've been racking my brain trying to think, when did I start the interviews? Because, of course, you know, no, probably not. But I wrote, so a poem came through for me when we were on a retreat, which was about honouring. I pulled one of your beautiful oracle cards, which was honouring my sisters. And it just allowed these words to come in and these feelings to come in about the voices of women being heard. And coupled with the fact that I had that whole experience of us being in a room next to this big conference of aged, suited, patriarchal men next door. And I had this big sort of like, oh my God, I can't bear this. And it was so powerful. It was so incredibly powerful. So I think for me, I feel that was something in my cauldron, in my womb cauldron, really started to stir and bubble and permeate and sort of call out for all of these different ingredients to go in and create magic. And then, of course, we've moved into the restrictions, the pandemic, you know, however one likes to phrase it. And it was perfect in terms of writing the book, because there was suddenly spaciousness to do that at a really deep level. You know, I was really able to well, actually, it was mostly being out on the land. As you know, I live in a very beautiful part of West Wales, and we have some beautiful woodland and stream and fields, and I was able to spend a lot of time there with nature, listening to Mother Earth. And I felt that, you know, we were in a global initiation with regards to what was going on. So again, in terms of writing the book and the initiation of menopause, there was just this super powerful concoction of connecting to Mother Earth, connecting to women, just this beautiful weaving of what I felt needed to be told. And when did the idea of interviewing the women come in? I guess it was quite early on, because I know I was interviewing women before and during the lockdowns. And again, that was something that just was meant to be. So I did the first part of the interviews with most of the women at one point, and then there was a big gap.
Yeah.
And I did the remaining part of the interview. And of course, in terms of menopause, that was really important, actually, because of the changes that we're experiencing as we move through that alchemical process. So it was fascinating and exciting and wonderfully magical to hear from each of the women how they had been sitting with what was going on at the time of their own menopausal journey. And then something else really interesting happened. At one point, and it was very early on during 2020, the lockdown, and I think many of us kind of had this feeling of needing to do something.
Yeah.
And most of my work is in person where I live. And of course, all of that dropped away. So it's like, well, what do I do? What do I do? How do I still keep connected? So of course, this Zoom was a marvelous thing to have in many ways. And, and so I found myself thinking, right, I'm going to write a program. And I got sucked, or I allowed myself to be sucked into spending many, many hours putting this program together on MemberVault. And I just got to the point where I was in front of the computer so much, I thought, this is not being aligned to who I am at all. Kind of, you know, what's going on? I'm not out in the fields. I'm not talking to people. And I'm sure that happened for so many people, you know, kind of that disconnection that I think probably throws it throws us all out of alignment when we're not connecting to anything other than a computer. But I had a sudden breakthrough one day, and I just thought, oh, I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to put it on a Word document, and I'm going to do it like that. And as soon as I did that, I realized I had a huge amount of the book written. So I thought I was doing it for something else. And then it said to me, no, here I am. It's like, okay. And it all just then came together with the greatest of ease. You know, once I stepped out of the doing and started realigning myself again to my flow, it was there. It was all there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
So much. And, you know, I love how the book is such a potent combination of like the women's stories, but also, you know, your wisdom around like different practices and ways we can support ourselves as we go on the journey.
Yeah. So that piece, so how the book is set out is the first piece is I offer my perspective of what menopause is, which is an alchemical journey. You know, it's a spiritual awakening. And then you have these amazing voices of the women that I interviewed. And then the third part is, as you've just mentioned, self-care and love practices. And they're practices that I use throughout my journey. But it was also very important to me so that whoever reads it knows that these are just suggestions. You know, this is what worked for me. That's how I was supported.
Yeah.
So, you know, even if the practice that I share is not for the woman who's reading it, I'm hoping that it will at least kind of activate something for her to explore.
Yeah.
And she can find her own, because that's such an important part of our process as menopausal women, that we are discovering, reconnecting to, searching, finding our own medicine.
Exactly.
Which is our internal authority piece. You know, we know what's right for us. We know that.
Yeah.
But for many of us throughout our lives, for various different reasons, we've forgotten, or we've been told that, no, you're wrong. You don't know. You know, all of that external authority stuff that says we know better. Well, they don't know better. You know, we know ourselves better than anyone. Of course we do.
I'm just like cheering. And I just want to say, I love that we can hear Molly, your daughter, in the background, who, you know, inspired your first book, Take Off Your Armour and Have a Cup of Tea. So it's so perfect that her voice is kind of part of this conversation.
Absolutely. And she is so unbound.
Oh, yeah. She is like the archetypal unbound.
Unbound. Yeah. So receive her sound with the knowledge of her wisdom. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah.
Oh, no, just so perfect. I want to talk about your story of menopause as well, because that's something like you were interviewing. Like interviews sounds like it was really like this formal process, like sitting there with a clipboard, like, right, okay. It wasn't like that. Like, you know, you're such a powerful space holder, Brier. Like I've said this to you so many times, but I'm so grateful for the way you hold space. And, you know, I'm one of the women whose story is included in the book, and having that conversation for me was or conversations, because it was two. And, it just helped me to have so many realizations about my own experience, which I'm so grateful for. But then your story is part of the book as well, because, we had a conversation. I interviewed you, putting that in inverted commas.
Yeah. We had a chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, you're right. Interview does it. It's not the right word, really, is it? It's that, we with you and you with me and all of the other women, it was a conversation. It was like sitting around the kitchen table or around a fire. It was intimate, and it was sacred, and it was, it was that thing that when women come together, and we listen to each other, and we give space to each other to explore what it is that we're experiencing, or what's we're being curious about, or what we're diving into. It's just that magic. It's that beautiful thing that happens when we come together. Yeah. And I was very grateful that you said to me, because what I started to do was just answer my own questions on my own in front of the computer. And then you made that wonderful suggestion of, well, why don't you have a conversation, have a chat with me?
Yeah.
So that's what we did. And it was perfect, because it allowed me to flow in the way that you had flowed when we were having the conversation.
Yeah.
And it was very important to me that my story was there. I mean, there was no way that I could ask all of you other women to share your stories without giving my own, because there were moments for all of us that felt very vulnerable. Some of the questions that we explored, and specifically for many of us around sex and sexuality, it's something that we don't, just like menopause hasn't been talked about, that also is not talked about. And I felt that was really important, that first of all, that question was there. And if I was going to ask it of other women, then I jolly well had to ask it of myself. And I couldn't have done that, really, not in the way that it happens when we come together and have the conversation. Yeah,
something different, isn't there? When
it's totally different.
We're being witnessed in whatever we are sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to talk about that. You talk about that vulnerability, and I know it's something probably for everybody who has shared their stories within the book. And what is that like for you as an author? Because when we make the decision to write our own book, to share our own story, that's our decision. And it can feel vulnerable and edgy and all of the things, but we're responsible for that decision, and we make that choice. Whereas here, you have that sense of responsibility to 11 other women as well. Like the story keeper for all of those women. What's that like for you?
Well, first of all, I felt very honoured because of the trust that each of the women placed in me. And actually that came through, as you know, because you were there. I had a book blessing a couple of nights ago, and the vulnerability piece came up in the conversations that we were having. So I had the conversation with each of you. Is it okay? Well, first of all, seeking permission. There needed to be permission there, of course. I mean, it goes without saying. And when I had written out the conversations, each woman received it, so that she was very clear about, because when we have the conversations, we don't necessarily remember what we've been asked or what we say. It's flowing in the moment. So it was very important for me to share that, and to be very clear from the start, saying, I'm not going to take from the conversations and put it all together as a sort of a melting pot. Your voice, your unique individual experience is what is going to go into the book. So obviously, the transcripts was sent to everybody, and I asked the question, do you want me to change your name? But also saying, I think that keeping one's own name is a very powerful piece, but I completely understand if names wanted to be changed. And also not just the woman's name, but other people that had been mentioned. So maybe husbands or boyfriends or children or, whatever, so there was that process, there was that conversation. And then, if any changes are made, obviously it goes back to be double checked. And and it was interesting because in the book Blessing, when some of the women brought up that piece about vulnerability, obviously that was very present for me, and it really resonated, and I recognized that because, you have this whole long, well, it's not always long, but this was quite a long process of writing it and checking it and sending it back and having all of the conversations and blah, 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 blah. But then the reality is, boom, the book's in print, it's there.
Yeah.
It's done, and I held the book out for the women to see, and then suddenly it was like, oh my goodness, my story's in there. So I really get that, there was that moment of that intake of breath, isn't it? It's like, okay. But, everybody was very, very clear and very aware of what was going in.
Yeah.
And it was a very easy thing. There was no difficulty around that at all. It was actually very pleasurable because, again, it was part of the process of deep listening, of the voice being heard. And, the choice was always there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just, it's an honor to be part of this circle of women who are all sharing their stories, like that feeling that we are all doing this together. And like you have, done the work of bringing us together and witnessing, and that deep listening, which I feel, I talk about like how the energy with which a book is conceived and created, like infuses the book, and each of the readers will feel that. And I just, I can feel that so strongly with Menopause Wisdoms. And I can feel that as somebody whose story is included as well. So it's very special what you've created.
Thank you. And I think I'm so glad you spoken that, because, that is one of the powerful things about being a menopausal woman, is that we find this flow, if we are invited to have our voice heard, if we do become witnessed, if we are curious, if we allow all of the different things that are coming through, it's like a fire, isn't it? It's that dancing of the flames. It's that circle around the fire. It's that, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I just have this image of us all dancing around a huge fire. And it's because it's not just about us either. The 12 of us that told our stories, it's also the voices of our mothers, of our grandmothers, that whole line of women who just were not allowed to experience menopause as the truth of what it is. We were silenced, we were burnt at the stake, we were tortured, we were shut down and shut out. And so, I felt that very, very deeply throughout the whole of the process. And actually the book Blessing, goodness, that was the moment as where we were encircled together, and we were, that's part of the vulnerability. That's why we can feel vulnerable, because we know in our bones that our ancestors were silenced for expressing the potency and the power of walking a pathway to Crone, of becoming Crone.
I want to talk about this. I know, there's so much. I've got 2 more questions. I'm just saying that. So, but the first one is about Crone. So I remember us having a conversation about what would be the title of the book, and using the word crone. So it's Menopause Wisdoms, Women's Stories of Becoming Crone.
Yes.
And that word can be triggering to people.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk about the word crone and why you decided to use that word.
Well, I decided to use it because that's what we are, and it was about reclaiming what we are, what we become as we journey through our menopausal years. Crone means wild, wise woman. She's the archetype of the wise woman in the world, of the woman who is in her power, in her potency, who shares her medicine with the world. Powerful.
Yeah.
Really, really powerful. And that's not power over, that is being in a power that invites others to open and awaken and discover their own power. This is coming back to the internal authority, one's own internal authority. So, it was really important to me right from the word go that was reclaimed, because, women speak about it in the conversations that are in the book, of the retraction of hearing the word crone, let alone being referred to as crone. And if you look it up in the dictionary, and this is all in the book, it still says an ugly, malicious old woman.
Yes.
That's the power of the patriarchy. That we weren't allowed to be crone. How fearful they were of us to have done what they've done.
Yeah.
And they, they're just, it needs to stop, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And,
and it really does. And that was very important to me, because it's once we start reclaiming what was taken from us, once we start speaking about that which we were silenced about, then we can step into our authority. We can step into being the wise, wild women of the world.
Oh my goodness.
And that's what our world needs. That's what this, lots of people are referring to the changes that are coming as the new earth.
Yeah.
And that is what this new earth needs. Wild, wise women who are in their power, in their strength, in their joy, in their love, in their compassion and grace, and loving who they are, loving their sisters, loving their brothers, loving Mother Earth. Because, it's when we come back to who we are, it's love. When we align ourselves back to Mother Earth and to nature, it's just all about love and knowing that our cycles are what life is, and death is, and rebirth is. It's so magical. It's so beautiful.
Brier, I just want to be in Wales with you right now. That's on fire.
You are.
I'm going to go and get in my car. I'll be there in a few hours, okay? One last question before we finish. What is your hope for every woman who receives a copy of Menopause Wisdoms in her hands?
That she rises up and walks her pathway to becoming crone in sisterhood, knowing that she is in sisterhood, knowing that she is being held, knowing that she does not have to do this alone, that she has in her bones and in her womb cauldron the wisdom that will carry her forward to be the woman that she already is, and more, as because as we walk that path, we become more, our spines grow tall, and our hearts are just open, and our eyes are gleaming, and it's wonderful. And so there's so much more to say, isn't there? But so what I hope for each woman is that she finds her pathway to be alchemical. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And for women who are listening to this, who are journeying it, and perhaps this is not yet her experience, then please dive into the book. Yeah. And get in touch with me and have a conversation. I love talking about this. And just know that you don't have to do this on your own. Yeah.
I love that invitation, to all women, but, and younger women as well, because I wish that I'd had a book like this available, or, even, I mean, there have been books around menopause available, but I just didn't feel like it was, I don't know, it didn't enter my awareness for a long time when I was younger. So I just feel it would have been so powerful for me to read something like this as a younger woman. You mentioned there about people getting in touch with you, Brier. So what's the best way for people to do that?
The only way for people to do that,
because you're not on social media, so
I don't do social media. Yeah, so and that's a whole other conversation we could have, because that's very for me, that was very much part of being a menopausal woman at the time that I made that decision. But anyway, so the way to get in touch with me is through my website, which is spiralsofwellbeing.co.uk. And you can subscribe or contact me, and I offer a free conversation to kind of explore whatever needs to be explored. I think my phone number's on my website as well, so you could always give me a call.
Give her a ring. Yeah.
Write me a letter. The address is on there, I think. Yeah.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah.
Oh.
Send me a card. I'll always reply. But and laughing aside, I love that, because it takes time. Ali, one of our Unbound sisters, she and I have been writing to each other, and I have another dear friend, and she and I write to each other, and it's so interesting to go back to that, because that's what I did as I had pen pals when I was a younger woman, and it takes time, and the anticipation and the waiting for the reply to come back through the letterbox is just gorgeous. And then you have it in your hand, and there's a beautiful card, and I love that. So,
oh my God, maybe we should start a network of Unbound pen pals.
I think so. Yeah. It's gorgeous. I love it. So you can do it that way. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Website, telephone, or a letter.
Yeah. Oh, Brier, thank you so much as ever. I always love our conversations, and I'm
me too.
Endlessly grateful to you for your magic and your being. Yeah, thank you so much.
And you too. Yeah, thank you, Nicola.